Martens. Welcome everyone to Elevate with V. So excited to be here with everyone. So this podcast was inspired by my own journey and as a way to express gratitude to those beautiful people that have helped me and supported me navigate some of the most challenging times that I've had. And I would love to share who they are and their amazing gifts with all of you. So I can't wait to introduce my guest today, Denice. She is a holistic practitioner, intuitive massage therapist, meditation teacher, Reiki Master teacher, quantum energy healer, Akashic records reader, oracle card reader, who uses all of these amazing tools and gifts to help her clients heal their mind, body, and soul. She is passionate about sharing her knowledge and experience so that she can help others move forward in their healing journey. So welcome, Denice.
Thank you, Vanita. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yay, I'm so excited to have you here. So I did want to share with everyone that I connected with Denice on a Facebook Live in like December of 2020 and started to follow her. And she started to do these weekly like tea time / card readings and healings. And I just remember like how incredibly wonderful that space was that she created for all of us. And it was just so much fun. And I know for me, that meant so much at that particular time when she was doing this. I mean, I looked forward to it every week. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get into this space. And we would just laugh and have fun. And, you know, she would share her gifts so generously and we would all kind of enjoy and kind of, I mean, I can't remember if there were too many men that came in. So it felt like a nice sisterhood that was happening.
I think there was like maybe one or two, if I ever recall. It was
Right,
definitely
like that would just like pop in like once in a while.
Yeah.
But I definitely wanted to say that I absolutely love your energy, your heart, your authenticity, your genuineness in wanting to support others on their healing journey. And you have so many amazing gifts. And I know that you're up to so many wonderful things. And I can't wait for us to kind of talk about some of that today. So welcome again, Denice.
Thank you very much, my dear.
I love it. So, as you know, the show is all about highlighting healing journeys. And so, how we've all navigated some of these challenging times to get to some of our silver linings. So, I was going to ask you, like, what event or events led you into stepping into your healing journey?
Probably the end of 2014 was one of the lowest points of my life, probably. I was living in Alberta, single mom, just struggling with I don't want to say man's job, but that's kind of what they called it. I was driving truck, hauling propane and hauling other things. And I was drinking a lot of alcohol at the time, just struggling with a daughter who was very strong-willed. And we just couldn't see eye to eye. She was just, it was like every day was phone call from school, phone call from school, phone call from school. And I just really hit a low point. And at that time, I ended up losing my driver's license. I didn't get a DUI, but I got charged with failing to provide a breath sample because the blow machine or whatever just didn't work. It was like minus 25 and whatever the universe brought in for that circumstance to come into play, I lost my driver's license. Well, my job was driving truck. So basically my entire world kind of came crashing down because now I'm a single mom. I don't have a job. I have no way to make money. I can't even drive. And I live in rural Alberta. I'm 15 minutes from a grocery store or from my daughter's school. And so everything kind of came crashing down on me. And at that point, a little birdie was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to go back to school. And I'd gone for a massage to a lady who was kind of becoming a friend at the time. And she's like, well, why don't you go to school for Wholistic Practitioner? I think that you would be really good at it. And I'm like, well, what is that? Like, what does it even mean? And she's like, well, it's like massage, but it just, it brings in some other stuff too. It's not just about physical hands-on massage. And I'm like, okay, well, give me the name of your school and I'll look into it. So I went out and it was, I don't even know, probably midnight. I went outside. I made a fire for myself, and I was just kind of having a conversation with myself and the stars. It was middle of winter, it was March, and I was just really struggling. I was really, really depressed, and I just couldn't figure out why this was happening to me. What was the good in it? What was the purpose of me having to go through this struggle after everything else I've been through in my life? Why did I have to go through this as well? And it was just clear. It was kind of like a clear message saying, okay, well, it's time to go back to school. And yes, holistic practitioner is what I need you to do. So again, single mom, no job, not able to pay the finances. And now I'm thinking about going to school. Okay, no problem. So I just followed all of my, at that time, I didn't realize it was intuition because I was not spiritual. I was not into any of this yet. I just kind of was following what felt like, okay, maybe this is the next step. So I applied for student loans. That all went through. I applied to school. That all went through. And my parents had just sold their home and they needed a place to stay while they were kind of in transition. And so they came and they moved in with me. So, okay, now my, pardon me, now my kid is taken care of. She can get to school. Somebody can get me groceries. Great. Somebody can drive me to school because my school was an hour away in Edmonton. So 3 days a week I had to drive into Edmonton for classwork. And then the rest of the study stuff was kind of done online at home. And so I started working through my massage school and my holistic practitioner training. And so through that, I started learning about what energy is. I grew up, shall we say, quite religious. And there was no real talk of energy, right? If anything ever happened, it was, well, God did this or the Holy Spirit. Like I never learned about energy and how we're all energetic beings and that we have all of this energy in us and people can feel it. Like I just never was taught that. And so when you don't know, you don't know, right? And so as I'm going through my schooling, it was a 2-year program, I'm starting to open up to the ideas that, okay, I'm actually, I'm a spirit, a soul inside of a physical body. Okay. But I have all of this energy in me and people can feel my energy. Okay. So then I start relating that to like my parenting. I start relating that to the boss I had at the time, who was a very toxic energy for me, which kind of led me down the path that I had ended up at. And so that was the very, very beginning of understanding that if you shift energies in your life, it's actually going to shift your life. And so I finished school. I'm still not really into a lot of the energy healing. I was introduced to energy. A lot of my training was in a traditional Chinese medicine background. And so I learned the old, it's old, it's ancient knowledge, but like reflexology and aromatherapy and meridian therapy, it's all about energy. And that was my first introduction and understanding of how this energy runs through our body and how if we change that energy flow, we can actually heal the things in our body and those things going on in our life. So that was the beginning of it. It started in 2015, basically. And then from there, I didn't really learn too much more of the like the Reiki or the quantum or anything until about 2019. I actually started getting really sick. I got really, really sick in about 2017, 2018. I had like chronic diarrhea. I was throwing up every morning, like sometimes even before I could get out of bed, I literally would just roll over and throw up. Like there was something really, really wrong going on inside my body. And so that was the turning point where I realized, okay, I need to make a really, really, really big shift right now, or like I'm maybe going to die because like I'm really, really, really sick. And I just couldn't understand really what the cause was. And so then that's what led me down, like doing a little bit more research about nutrition and food and how the things that we eat and what we feed our body with also feeds our soul. And I ended up leaving the job that was very, very, very toxic for me. I finally was able to open up enough to understand, even though I really like the money that I'm getting, it's just not worth chronic diarrhea and throwing up every morning. You know what I mean? It's just not worth it. It's not worth me not having any kind of a life, or feeling kind of almost dead inside. And so 2019, I changed my diet. I kind of started eating according to like my blood type. I learned about poop. I went to a poop seminar and learned about how important that is. I know it's weird to hear and say sometimes, but it's actually really important. And so I just started learning more about my body, things that we aren't ever really taught, unless you have parents or someone in your circle that is really into nutrition. We just are never really taught it. And so I had stopped drinking alcohol. I started eating the right foods. I started drinking all kinds of water. And I got into meditation. I don't even remember how or what prompted it, but it just seemed like, oh no, I do. It was, I was following somebody online. She was like a business, it was like energy and business mixed together. And so, and she did a lot of meditation. And in her meditations, I started to find calmness, and I started to feel again, like feel not so dead. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe there is something to this meditation thing. I'd always wanted to try it. You know, you hear about meditation all throughout your life, but you know, in your head, you think, okay, yogis and, you know, the Buddhist monks and, you know, people sitting in the Om position or lotus position. Like that's kind of sometimes what comes to us when we have no experience with it. So I really changed everything about my life. I started doing, you know, positive affirmations. I started reading books that were about healing and about just positivity in general, changing the way that you think, and the thoughts that you allow to circulate around in your head, because we are really in control of that. Even though sometimes it feels like we're not, we really are in control of the things that we think and we say. And so I just really did a whole switcheroo, and I started to get better. I lost, I think it was 10 pounds every month. I think I was about 180 pounds, and I'm only 5'4". So like 140, 130 is kind of my happy weight. And so when I stopped drinking, started eating right, started meditating and doing all these positive changes for me, the weight just literally fell off me. And I felt so good. I felt so alive. And this was the first time in a really, really long time I'd felt so good. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's something to this, you know? And then that year, I also got my Reiki training, because that just somehow again came into my life somehow. I don't even remember how, but all of a sudden this lady was offering it, and I thought, yeah, that feels good. Let's go in that direction. Just like I had been all along, kind of been like, okay, that feels good. Let's follow that. That feels good. Let's follow that. All of a sudden this Reiki came up, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know what it is, but I know I'd had Reiki once before when I was younger. And it really helped with my stomach issues. And so I think maybe that's why I went towards it, because I still had a little bit of tummy issues, and it was much better. I, you know, didn't have the diarrhea or the vomiting anymore, thank goodness. But I still thought, okay, that was a tool that helped me one time, so let's try that out. And so I got into Reiki, and then the whole world shut down with COVID. And my business, which was a physical hands-on massage business, obviously got shut down. And I again was back to no job, hardly any income. What am I going to do? And at that time, my auntie actually had passed away. She'd been murdered. And so it was a really tumultuous time in my family. But because I'd been on this really great, beautiful path of meditation and Reiki and eating all the things, I was in a place where, as tragic and horrible as it was, it didn't affect me as bad, because I understood that my aunt's soul had a journey and she was on it, and there was a purpose and there was a reason. You know, like I was just in a different headspace than a lot of her friends and my family. And so I was in a place where I was able to help a lot of my family throughout that really horrible time, going into COVID, which was another horrible time. And so through that experience, I ended up being introduced to Sherry, who I know you've had on your show before, Sherry Collins. Amazing teacher, an amazing teacher, by the way. And so I picked up the quantum energy healing through her. And also I did my Akashic records training through her as well. And so that was kind of how I started to supplement some of my income throughout that whole weird, I'm open, business is closed. Oh, business is open. Oh, business is closed. It was really hard. And so just kind of went online. And so that's been kind of the progression on how all of these tools just kind of came up. Like when I needed something, it presented itself. And if I was open to hearing it, I followed it. If I wasn't, then maybe it wasn't the right timing and it just wasn't suitable at that time. So it's been a really long 7-year journey kind of learning to trust my intuition and learning to understand what things are good for me and what things are not so good for me, and being honest with myself. Sometimes we struggle with that a little bit, is in the honesty of, maybe I'm struggling in this area and I could use a little bit of help, and then asking for help, and then surrendering and listening to that, and allowing the universe to bring you what you need at that time to help you through whatever lesson it is that your soul chose to learn. As difficult as they are sometimes.
So true. Wow. What a journey. And, truly thank you for sharing, because, I think for people that are listening, like, we never know what each other's stories are, but when we hear them, we can find ourselves in so many pieces, right, of the story, and be like, wow, I totally like resonate with that, or I can't even imagine having to go through some of those things. But each one of us, it's like, oh my gosh, like, look at our stories, what we've had to like sort of come through. I mean, obviously, when we're on the other side, we have a different perspective because we have the higher perspective. You don't have that when you're going through it. So when you're like, really sick and you feel like you're dying, you're like, what is happening, universe? Like, what are you doing to me? Like, I'm a good person. Why are you doing this to me?
I don't deserve this.
Yeah, it's like, what did I do? I'm such a good person. But I was going to ask you, because you mentioned this a little bit. It's almost sort of like how, I would say, and this is similar for me, is, we're not even aware of our intuition and the guidance that's coming in, but you were still open enough where you were like, okay, I'm getting a nudge, or this feels right, or that feels right. Share a little bit more about how you were kind of building that. Was it just sort of like you'd get nudged to something and you would do it and you're like, oh, well, that kind of worked out. Okay. Did you hear something? Was it your clairs? Like, what was kicking in for you while you were kind of early on in your journey?
So clairaudience is one of my main clairs. I do hear a lot of things. I've always had a strong affinity and connection to music. And so I think hearing things and feeling things has always kind of been where I connect with the best. And yeah, sometimes it would be a feeling of like I'd hear something, or you hear something on the radio, you read something and it's like, that sounds interesting. But then sometimes it's almost like I can hear, like, or voices or little nudges, that maybe they're angelic nudges, just kind of come through. Your intuition is kind of giving you little hints like, yeah, well, what about this? And if you ignore it, it's like, okay, well, remember that time you heard, like, for example, Reiki, right? It just came up out of nowhere. And I just had this weird random memory of this one time when I was 17, and I went for a massage and she did Reiki, and my stomach felt really, really, really good after that. Like, just this one random memory just came up and popped in. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe Reiki. And then, I see a sign for it. And then all of a sudden it's posted up on the internet. And then all of a sudden, I hear somebody downtown randomly talking about it at the grocery store. So it's like, boom, boom, boom. Okay, I've heard it 3 times now from 3 different sources. Maybe I should actually listen and pay attention to what this message is coming at me. My intuition was not something I was closely connected with, I would say, at the beginning. Even going through my schooling, like, I didn't even really learn a lot of energy healing per se, and I'm talking like Reiki or quantum or anything like that. We learned the traditional, like, Chinese moving chi around, right? Unblocking pressure points, moving energy around, clearing meridian lines. That's kind of what we learned in regards to energy healing. But there was no talk of, listening to your intuition or anything like that. But through the practice of my holistic practitioner training, I was building my intuition. I didn't know it at the time, but I was. And I think I went a couple times to a class, not very far from here. There was a lady who would offer like a weekly, I think it was even called like in an intuitive evening or whatever. Basically, we all just got together and practiced intuitive practices. You know, we would bring an article, a picture, or a ring or something from somebody. We would all bring that, and then we would have to switch, and then, you know, just read the energy that we felt off of that item. So it was just basically a bunch of ladies getting together and doing intuition building exercises. And that's probably where the Reiki thing came up, because Anita would have been one of the ladies hosting that, and she did Reiki at the time. So that's probably how the Reiki fit in there. But Reiki was just kind of like step one towards my deeper energy healing training. But yeah, learning to listen to your intuition and trust, I think was still, I'm not going to say was, I'm going to say is still, because it's an ongoing practice. It's one of the hardest things I found, because there's always doubt. Like, we are our worst self-sabotagers sometimes. And the self-doubt that comes up sometimes, like sometimes it's hard to believe that the message you're receiving, or the idea, or the voice that you're hearing, or the vision that you're getting, or the feeling that you're feeling, or those things you just know, you don't know why you know, but you just know. You know, sometimes it's hard to believe that that is coming from an honest, clear source. And so one thing I would strongly encourage anybody who's listening, if you're wanting to learn how to connect more and listen to yourself, absolutely do some exercises. Like, it's a muscle, right? It's intuition. Listening to your intuition is just like any other training. If you want to run a marathon, you have to practice. You have to train your muscles, you have to train your breathing, you have to train your body. If you want to use that intuitive muscle, you have to practice with it, you have to train it. And so it's not just something that, I mean, I'm sure there are people that just are born with it, because we're all born with different gifts. But for the majority of people, it's something that we need to practice, and we have to work on it, because we are, again, full of free will, right? And we don't always, we don't always listen to ourselves, I guess is the easiest way to put it. We sometimes don't take our own advice. So if you can learn to take yourself out of it and lean more on your intuition, knowing that those messages and that guidance is coming from a more beautiful place outside of you, it's a little bit easier then to take the ego out of it, and to just go in faith and trust, surrendering to those messages that you're getting. So yeah, but it's an ongoing practice. Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, Denice, because, you know, sometimes we look at people, like I would look at someone like you. I mean, if someone read your bio, they're like, holy smokes. I mean, she's got like 10 different modalities under her belt. Like, I mean, she's like probably doesn't second guess anything, like, you know. And then it's so funny because Denice and I literally had a conversation before we jumped on this call where, you know, we both were sharing that we are so guilty of not tuning into our intuition. And we're like, wait a second, sometimes we forget. Like, it's so easy for us to, you know, tap into those gifts for other people, but not doing it for ourselves. And, you know, I'm definitely someone who is still very much on that journey of trusting my intuition and, you know, trusting the guidance. Definitely, I feel like from where I started and where I'm now, I mean, huge progress, but it is like a daily practice, like you said. And I too am not the best about like carving out time to sort of specifically work with my intuition and guidance. But, you know, it's such a great reminder what you're saying. It's like, you know, it's an ongoing journey for each one of us. And some of us are just so in tune. So for example, you know, she mentioned both of us, our teacher, Sherry, like I was going to ask you, because when you go into kind of her way of the way that she teaches, I mean, she really forces you to rely on your connection and your guide. So I was going to say that when you went in and started to take like quantum or like Akashic, so much of that is just, you got to like trust what you're receiving, and you have to trust your guidance. So, I would love for you to kind of share, was that kind of a smooth transitioning, going from like, you go from like Reiki to like quantum, or was it not a big deal? Like, did you feel that there was like a big stretch for you to move into that? I would love to know more.
It was awkward at first because I've taken a lot of classes and a lot of training over the years and a lot of different things. And there's always a manual that you're given, or a textbook or whatever, right? Physical written words that tell you how to do something. I'm the type of personality that always likes to have a manual, or like I read the instructions. If I get a new something, I read all the cautions. Like, even though I know you're not supposed to plug a toaster in and then put it in the sink in running water, I read it anyway. Like, I don't know, I'm just that type of personality. And so always having a textbook or something to guide you by has been my forte. I was always really good in school. As long as I could read the stuff, I would pass the test. Going in with Sherry was like, no manual, no textbook. We had to take our own notes. And a lot of her responses to questions were, well, just ask your guides. Just ask. Just ask your guides. Do what they say. And it's like, okay, but okay, what do you mean by guides? Like, what do you mean? So, and I mean, Sherry wasn't into her modalities that much longer than us, right? Like, she only kind of had her transition, late 2018, 19, maybe somewhere around there. So we weren't that far behind her, but she just learns at such an expedited pace. Like, she's a fast paced, go, go, go. Let's make something faster. Like, let's heal faster. Let's bring in a better modality because it's going to work faster. Like, she's all about, let's get shit done. And so for her, and in her journey, the way that she happened into her healing path was about her surrender. She finally just said, okay, universe, what am I supposed to do? And the universe went, here, do this. And she listened and she followed. She was guided. For the for the majority of us, I won't say the rest of us, but for the majority of us, we don't work like that for the most part, right? I was never introduced to the idea that I had guides. I mean, I'd heard people talk about, oh, you have like a spirit animal guide, and oh yeah, okay, that's cute, but I never really felt like I had guides with me, standing behind me, surrounding me. And so once I got into teaching with Sherry, or taking classes from Sherry, she really made me feel like I have angels and archangels and ancestors and guides and healer guides. And like, there's a whole entire host of angelic beings standing. Oh, I just got full chills when I just said this. I have a whole host of angelic beings standing behind me. She could probably see them. I can't. That's not one of my special gifts. It's one of hers. She can see them all, but I can feel them and I hear them. And so it was definitely a stretch, which is why meditation became so important. Because when you work with yourself in meditation, and I say work because it is work, but so rewarding at the same time. It's like the best work ever. When you go through meditation and when you get really serious into it and you really open up to the idea that I need to be quiet in my mind so that I can hear what my soul is telling me, so that I can receive the messages that my huge angelic team is trying to tell me, but I've got too much shit going on in my head and I can't hear it. Like, when you can really work on closing down all that chatter and just opening up to your higher beings that are there to help you, then it changes everything. And that's really what Sherry was teaching us, was we have these guides and all you have to do is ask, but you have to ask. And for a lot of us, it's really hard to ask for help. We think, oh, I need help. I've been doing it myself my whole life and I'm fine. Like, I don't need anybody's help. Like, there's just, especially, you know, single mom and all the things, right? I've been doing everything alone and I raised the kid alone and blah, blah, blah. I don't need anybody's help. All these silly stories come up, right? I know a lot of you can relate to that. We all think that we don't need somebody else's help because we're strong enough, we're tough enough, and we can do it ourselves. But when it comes down to it, when you don't have to, why would you? If there's a better way, if there's an easier way, if there's a more peaceful way full of love and prosperity and abundance, why wouldn't you trust in your guides and put your trust and surrender to the messages that, and not just the messages, but the guidance or the healing that they're trying to bring for you. So yeah, it's different, but definitely more rewarding when you can work with your guides. Yeah.
Yay. No,
That
I'm
was a
so
long
glad.
answer. Sorry,
No,
Vanita.
it's perfect. No, because I think what I was trying to showcase was, you know, from someone who was doing this very different type of energy healing work. And because we both know Sherry, and, you know, for those people that are listening, Sherry was one of my premiere episodes. So please definitely go back and listen to that episode so she can kind of share her journey and her wisdom and all the things that she's up to. But I know that the way that she teaches is very different. And I know that it's such a push into really tapping into your own intuition and guides. And, you know, for me personally, and I shared this on the episode, when I first learned quantum from her, I was like in a panic. I'm like, I have no clue. Like, I don't trust myself, like beyond like a can of tuna type of thing. Like, I have no idea. And so it really took me a while to really trust that, you know, I had received the activations, that I am a healer, that I can do the work. And I still have, you know, some doubt, even though now I feel so much more connected to my guides. Like you, I don't see them. I don't see them. Like, I feel like I feel them and I can see them in my third eye, but it's not like I'm just looking around my room and boom, they're like right there. But it's like you said, it's an energy, you feel it. And the more I find that I kind of work with them, and it's so hard because I think it's this kind of like untraining. I know it's not a word, but you know, it's sort of like we've only ever known to just be like, well, sometimes I just got to do it myself, because we're just so used to it, the do it yourself mode. We forget. We're like, oh my God, they're just waiting. They're like, oh my God, we're here. Just ask. I can't do anything until you ask me. And then suddenly you remember, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, why didn't I just stop to ask and say, can you just help me? Can you just help me? And so I love the reminder that you're offering to people of, one of the things for me is I'm realizing like just more quiet meditation time. And I have to put this in as we're talking about meditation. I used to absolutely love your meditations. Like when you would do guided meditations, I literally would just be jumping up and down. But the moment you'd be like, I'm doing a meditation, because you used to do them. And I apologize if people can hear the sirens. That tells you the importance of Denice's meditations. That's how amazing they were. So I just remember like you would guide us, and I would just like, I'm such a visual person. And I remember doing the meditation, you would just like transport me. And I literally was just, oh my God, like the joy and just the journeying. I would just enjoy it so much. So I still, to this day, like I still have them saved. You know, some of the recordings that you shared with us, for those of us that would come in and, you know, we would like pay for some of the meditations. They're truly like one of my favorite meditations. And I had to share one of the meditations that we did, like some things popped up in that. And then we were all sitting and sharing, like, I have no idea where that came from. I'm sure that is all like just, I don't know. Vanita loves to make up stuff. So that's kind of what's happening. And it's so interesting because you guys are like, well, I don't know, maybe it's not. And I just kind of let it be. And I'm not joking, Denice, all of that stuff is coming back full circle. Like literally the same thing has shown up like 2 or 3 times where it's like, okay, I guess I can't exactly keep denying if I'm being shown the same thing over and over again. Kind of how you said, right? It's like, okay, if it's showing up like 2-3 times, all right, they're trying to get my
Listen.
attention. Like maybe I should like look at this, right? So I love that we talked about that. But yes, I just really not only loved your meditation, but I love what you're sharing about meditation as a practice. And honestly, just to remind everybody that it doesn't have to be some big to do. Like even if you can just do 2 minutes every day, start with that and just make that time for yourself, because it's almost sort of like, I was just thinking about this like yesterday where, you know, people pray, right? They're like, oh, I'm praying, and that's amazing. Do it. But the meditation is the time where you can actually receive the answers or guidance sometimes. So it's almost like just allowing things, because we all know our brains are going a million miles an hour. So it's almost like just taking that time to just bring some silence to whatever degree you can. We're not trying to be some yogi on a mountain, but
That's right.
to whatever degree you can. Yeah. And it's like, just allow what's coming. For some people, you know, if they, because I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I can't meditate, I can't do it. I said, okay, well, maybe for you, that's journaling, but just allowing anything that's in your brain to like come out onto the paper. Maybe that's your way. So there's many different ways. For some people, honestly, someone just shared this with me. They said, when they're washing dishes, that's when they get information because they're quiet. They're not thinking about anything. Or someone said, because when they're driving, suddenly information comes in from their guides because it's like, okay, they're quiet. They're focusing on the road. Let me bring you information. So there's many, many different ways. So don't feel like, oh my God, I don't meditate. Many, many different ways. And I know that Denice would agree that there's many, many different ways that this information can come in.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, but it's really just to remind us, right, that there's many different ways and your way might look different, but try out a few things. You might have to try a few things to find what actually works for you.
Yeah, I tried a few different, like when I was leading a lot of meditations and stuff online. I tried a lot of different things to try and reach a lot of different people, just to show them like you don't have to just sit with your back super straight, with your eyes closed, and quiet your mind and, you know, focus on your breath. Like that is, yeah, that's one way to meditate. But for, like you said, for some people, it's when they're driving, doing the dishes, the shower. I get a lot of things in the shower, and sometimes I feel like I wish I had like one of those boards I could just like sketch things, or maybe I should just like write it on the shower window or the shower door, you know, because lots of times you're quiet, you're, you know, maybe you're washing your hair, you're kind of stimulating all the pressure points on your head, things are kind of quieting down, and things will come to me all the time. And it's also a really great time when you're kind of cleansing yourself, right? You're washing off in the evening, you're kind of washing off like the day's grime and energy. If it's the morning, you're kind of refreshing yourself, you're starting washing off, you know, the night's energy and starting fresh. And you can go for a walk, you can play with an animal, play with your kids, right? Just anything where you just take the focus off of there's so much going on in my head, right? When we think there's so much going on, that's what you focus on, is all the things going on. But if you can focus on something else, something that you really, really enjoy, something that's calming, that makes you happy, right? If you can bring in more love and more joy and more peace, gratitude, if you can bring all of that in, your meditation is going to be a million times stronger than if you just sat quiet, forcing yourself to have your spine straight and to not think about anything, right? That I hear that all the time, is that people say, well, I just can't sit and be quiet. So why bother? Like, I'm never going to be able to do that. Okay, well then don't try it that way. There's a million other ways to meditate. Some people really connect with the mantra style, like Deepak Chopra, right? A lot of his meditations is based on a mantra style where you repeat a phrase, and you just kind of repeat that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. You repeat that throughout your meditation. And the idea of it is that, you know, not only are you calling on the energy of whatever that phrase means, but you're focusing on one thing. You're focusing, we'll pick love. That's the word that's coming to mind. So if you were to sit there quiet and just, you know, focus on love, 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 and just repeat it, you're focusing on love. You're not focusing on the 10 other million things that, your to-do list, the things you didn't do, the things you need to do. You're not focusing on that. You're just focusing on that one word, love. And then the energy of it is coming to you, right? And so there's lots of, a walking meditation is one of my favorites. I love to walk out in the bush. I mean, I live in rural Alberta. There's trees and paths everywhere. That's always been one of my favorite things to do. I grew up in BC, and I really, really connect with nature. And so one of my favorite things ever since I was a kid was just to be out in the bush, basically. And what better place to meditate than surrounded by nature, surrounded by all the healing love and energy that natural Gaia gives us, right? And so I would really encourage you, if you've never meditated before and you're looking for some peace, some calmness, some guidance, some extra support, love, connection, meditation is absolutely the way to go, but you just have to find the way that you connect with it. And there's no right and there's no wrong. Everybody is different. It's just like everybody has different gifts. Everybody has different ways that they can heal or connect. Meditation is the same way. Some people really like guided meditations, like Vanita had mentioned. I'm kind of, that's like my thing. I really like to create little stories for people to follow. And, that's kind of how Source laid it on my heart to do my meditations. Mostly was through guided meditations. And that's an easy way, because if you ever listen to an audiobook, or if you ever liked, being read to, kind of the same thing, only I'm leading you through a journey with your soul, and your soul is experiencing all these things as we go about and do whatever. So there's lots of different ways that you can meditate. And I would strongly encourage anybody who's struggling, who's feeling maybe a little bit weak or low, depressed, all of these things I went through them all. And meditation absolutely was the buffer that helped me find a little bit of strength in myself and in my soul. And it helped me to realize that I'm never alone, ever alone. Like, sometimes you feel super alone, even if you're surrounded by your loved ones. Sometimes, I don't know what it is, but sometimes you just feel alone, like somebody just doesn't understand what you're going through. So if you just get quiet with yourself and just ask, again, your guides, you don't even have to know who they are, but if you just ask, right, I'm struggling, Source, universe, God, whatever you relate to, if you just ask for a little bit of help, somebody's going to come forward and they're going to help you. They're going to give you that love, that hug. And actually, that's funny that just popped in, because I want to mention that I went through, I think it was maybe in my Akashic training. I think it was just after my Akashic. Oh, no. It was when I was taking that manifestation course with Sherry. That's right. I was having a really low day. Finances were really bad. COVID had just hit. I had like no work. I was really struggling financially. And I was super depressed. Like, I felt so sad that day. I just felt like I wanted to just crawl up into a ball and just cry for days. Like, I just was really, really feeling it. And so I was talking with Sherry, and she's like, well, why don't you just ask your guides for a hug? And I'm in my head like, okay, I'm home alone. There's nobody here. There's no physical being in front of me to put their arms around me and squeeze me. Like, okay, but I'll listen to Sharon. I'll do what she says. Sure. So she got me to close my eyes and hold out my arms and just imagine. And what she said to me was, just imagine the first person that comes to mind. So whether it be a grandparent, whether it be a horse you used to have, whether it be, your loved one now, maybe it's a past loved one. It doesn't matter. Whoever comes to your mind first. So once you ask, whoever comes to your mind, she said, just imagine, pretend, you will, that you're reaching out and that you're putting your arms around them. Or if you don't even have the energy to do that, then just imagine that they're reaching out and they're putting their arms around you. Or that dog is putting his head on your shoulder. And I felt those arms around me. I felt that being squeeze me and hug me. And I just stood there and just cried. And it was like the best cry ever. You know how some cries are like, oh, you feel icky and sad and your eyes are puffy like oranges. And it's just like, you don't feel any relief from, I mean, yeah, you cried, but you don't feel any better. This was so amazing. I felt that hug. Like I have never felt anything that I couldn't physically see or hold in front of me, you know? So there's always a connection when that you can feel. There's always a way that you can connect with your spirit guides, your animal guides, whatever it is, or whoever it is, whatever it is. There's always a way that you can connect. But again, like Vanita and I were saying, you have to ask. It's not just going to happen for you. You have to get to that place where you're comfortable enough to say, I need help. Please help me, right? Sometimes we just have to ask. And that's the lesson in the journey itself sometimes, is learning that sometimes you just have to ask for help, and that's okay. We're human. We can't do everything ourselves. It's okay to ask for help. It's
100%.
hard sometimes, but it's okay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I think you and I are like totally on the same wavelength when you were sharing, because I was going to share to say that, you know, there are times, you know, like where, especially like during the holidays, where everyone's supposed to be all like, oh, holidays, it's so fun. And I was like, well, I don't know that I'm feeling all of that, you know, like I'm here by myself. I don't have any family close by. And, you know, even though I enjoy the holidays, I, you know, make the most of it. There's still that feeling of like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to like be around loved ones or feel that love? And, you know, I remember just kind of sitting one day, I was getting ready to have dinner, and I literally just reached out to my guides and I said, could you just flood me with your love? Can I just feel your love surrounding me and supporting me? And you know, for me, that's energetically, it felt that way, you know.
Yes.
And then one of the other things, which this could be a stretch for people, but I'm going to throw it out there, is, you know, one of the things that I learned, you know, my dad has passed on many years ago, my grandmother passed on many years ago, and you know, the thought came into my mind is that, you know, we can choose how close or how distant we want that relationship to be, you know. And if you have connected, if you're interested in any of that by any chance, you know, one of the things that I was doing was like, I'm like, well, let's have dinner together. Like, how about you just come and sit at my table and we'll just kind of sit and, you know, chat. And, you know, maybe that might be a little out there for some people, but like that was something that, you know, I like to do sometimes. And it gives me that connection. It makes me feel like that energetic presence and that reminder of that, you know, you're really never alone. And all you have to do is ask. And they're so happy to be more part of our lives. And, you know, I think they're probably like, we can do so many things together. Just invite me. Have me be there.
Going for walks with loved ones is one of the best ways. If, you know, if you're out and about and, you know, alone, or you're wishing you had some company, or whatever the reason is, or even if you're not feeling lonely and you just are missing somebody, that happens too, right? You can call on any soul at any time and they will come join you, as long as you're open to the idea of it, right? And actually, I did that a lot when my auntie had passed over, as I mentioned. And maybe that was one of the reasons why I wasn't as distraught. And I'm going to use that word because that was how a lot of my family felt. I mean, it was a really horrible thing that happened. And when I finally heard what had happened and understood that her soul had decided to move on, that was the end, I immediately started having visits with her. You know, I just kind of wanted to check in and make sure she was okay. I mean, how her physical body left this earth wasn't a good way, and I just wanted to make sure that she was okay. And so I would invite her. You know, I used to, well, I still do, but I spent a lot of time meditating in my hot tub. I'm sure you heard me talk about the hot tub all the time. But yeah, I would do a lot of meditations in the evening in my hot tub. And so sometimes I would just say to her, you know, hey, just come sit and have a chat with me. And I would. And it's not like I see her in a physical, like I see you right now, but there's a feeling of it. There's a sense of it. Or sometimes you hear, their voice in your head. Everybody, again, is going to receive in a different way. But energy can never be destroyed. It just changes form. So just because her physical body was no longer living doesn't mean that her soul was no longer living. And how I related to her soul, like we all have a lot of past lives, and everybody in every lifetime that we lived is going to remember us in a physical sense differently, right? Like I didn't look physically like this in my past life. So those people that I was surrounded by and loved me and that I loved in that past life won't remember me looking like this, right? But my soul didn't change. My soul is the same. And so that is what gets recognized throughout all these journeys and lifetimes that our soul takes. And so how you remember somebody is exactly how they can come to you. They may come to you in a different form as well. I haven't had too much experience with that, but I'm sure it's possible. So again, it just comes back to trust. It comes back to trusting that what you're receiving is for your highest and greatest good. And it's often important to state that at the beginning, right? If that's what you're looking to do, is, state, I'm looking, to connect with my guides for my highest and greatest good, or whatever. Make sure that you're always bringing in that positive light and love, right? Surrounding yourself, sealing yourself in a container, in a space where you know that you are protected, that no negative energies can come and try and attach themselves to the situation or muddy the situation. If you go in asking for healing or light or love or anything, always making sure that you've protected yourself first is a really good practice as well. Even with meditations, right? That's why we always started with an energy clearing and a chakra balancing when we did my meditations. There was always kind of a healing that happened with my meditations as well, but I always wanted my people to understand that we are going into this in a clear, safe space. So no matter what you receive, no matter what you feel, no matter what comes up for you, it's coming to you in a clear, whole, safe space full of love and light and good intention.
I just love how this conversation meandered over here, because this is awesome. This is exactly like, such important stuff. And I did want to, it's like we're on the same wavelength, because I was going to say, well, it's really important to set your intention before you call or ask for anybody and do your protection practices. And it doesn't need to be complicated. If you don't know of like protection practices, even if you just say, hi, my beautiful, benevolent team of light, just surround me as, my loved ones or anybody's coming through. So I know that I'm protected. I know that I'm safe. And, you don't have to fear anything, but it's always nice to know that you can feel comfortable with the connection that's coming in, because we know there's a lot of stories floating out there about all kinds of things. And the last thing is to do something when you're fearful. Like, never connect when you're in a space of fear. Please don't do that. Like, this is, as Denice was sharing, like, have your intention and to be something that's going to be nurturing and loving and, adding to your soul and adding to your joy or bringing you comfort. Like, just be conscious of what you're asking for and then allow and trust things to come in. So, and I appreciate that reminder, because I do remember that in your meditations, which is, something that I love. And I just love everything that we've talked about, hearing about your journey and how we've come to the place of like trust and like different ways that we can, build that trust and how to receive messages and also to connect with whether it's loved ones or pets or anything that you miss or are not part of your like physical everyday life. Like, we have a way to connect, and it's just about you trusting and believing that that's possible, and it is. And so we're coming towards the end of the show. Denice and I have chatted away, and it's I told you, I was like, Denice, we just kind of go with it. And it's like, oh my goodness. Oh, we've been talking for like over an hour now. So fun.
Oh
And
my
we
gosh.
keep going. we could keep going. Like I
I
said,
always love chatting with you, though. It's like, we haven't talked in I don't know how long, and it's like
yes.
we didn't ever stop talking. Like, it's just always so good to visit with you, Vanita. Thank you so much for the pleasure of being on your podcast. It's just such an honor, and just so
Oh,
lovely again to be in your energy. I always loved having you during the tea times. It was just
thank
such
you.
a special time. But
Yes.
my guide just wanted to pop in something and just clarify something you had said. They say it's really important. So you said not to how did you word it? Something about the fear, not to go into something in fear. And just a little bit of clarification there. If you are feeling afraid, it's okay to ask for help. Like, let's just clarify that, right? Like, if you're scared, like, the thing that they're coming to mind is a traffic accident. If you're driving and you're like really scared, maybe the roads are icy, or you've been in an accident and you're full of fear, it's okay to ask for help and to connect, but make sure that you're doing it from a place of like, I am so scared right now, I need some help. So it's okay to admit that I'm in a fearful place right now and I need help. But I think what Vanita was saying was, well, how do I explain? Well, I won't explain that part of it. We'll just say it's okay to ask for help when you're feeling fearful. Just make sure that you understand and can understand that I'm in fear right now. I'm in fear and I need help. So I'm going to call on, angels of light, of love, right? So just make sure that you clarify, like, I understand I'm fearful right now and I need some help. So love and light, call in all the good things. Don't call into something from a space of fear. I don't
Yes.
know if that was any
Yes.
clearer, but
No, I totally understand. And I'm glad that you added that layer because, that is, those situations occur as well. I mean, typically when we're like sitting down to like meditate or do those kind of things, that's not usually the emotion that'll come up. But I mean, you could be anywhere. Maybe you were out walking and something happened and you did get a little scared and you're like, I could use some help. I'm a little bit freaked out, So that's important too. That's a really important piece. So I appreciate your guides bringing that in because that is a very important piece as well, is that you can ask in any situation, but knowing that, hey, I'm just asking for help because this is what's going on, whatever that, whatever that emotion or feeling is at that time, they're there for you literally 24/7.
Yes.
You have access to them 24/7 and they're like, what do you need? Just let us know. So it's just about us remembering that they're there to help, that we don't have to do everything by ourselves. And then to trust if something is coming in to say, oh, okay. And, be open. And sometimes that takes time. You're going to build it slowly but surely, but it will happen. And it's a beautiful thing if you allow it. And, Denice and I are both in that place where, we've worked quite a bit on our trust. And it really is beautiful. The more we kind of open up to it and surrender to it, like there's so much amazing support that we're able to receive in every single part of our journey. So I love it. All right. So we're coming to that place. And it's interesting how you just mentioned this about your meditation. You're like, I like to do like, chakra and energy balancing. I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's something you might want to do for us as we're getting ready to close up this session or whatever you'd like to share with us, Denice.
No, absolutely. Let's do an energy clearing, a real quick one, a real easy one. This is something that anybody can do anytime. You don't have to be a healer. You don't have to be certified. You don't have to have taken a class, like none of this, right? Anybody can clear their energy at any time. And it's really just a matter of asking and being open to receiving. That's the other, that's the other side of it. So they're just popping in that comment you made about prayer. Prayer oftentimes is asking. It's asking for this, please protect this, please do, please, 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 please. Prayer is often asking things, and meditation is often the quiet receiving of the messages that you were asking for in the prayer. And so asking and being open to receiving what you were asking for. Even if it's not exactly what you were asking for, it may look a little different, but it will still be for your highest and greatest good. And you have to be open to receiving that. You can't ask for something and then just close down and not be willing to hear the response. It's always a two-way street, right? You can't just talk at somebody and then not listen to what they have to say back. So just being open to receiving is really all you have to do. I'm just gonna grab some labradorite and my selenite, and yeah. So wherever you are, if you feel led to, please close your eyes and sit comfortably. If you're doing something that doesn't allow you to close your eyes, please don't. But if you can, just close your eyes, maybe give your shoulders a little shake, just release any tension that you might be holding in your back, in your body. Just take a nice deep breath in and release. And then take another deep breath in and release. And then we're going to call on source energy to come from up above, to come down into the top of your head, called the crown chakra. Just going to call on source, asking to open and expand, clear out our crown chakras, opening and expanding it, allowing us to have a deeper connection to source. If you see in colors, the crown chakra is often a very light violet color. So you can just imagine maybe this beautiful violet color pooling and expanding at the top of your head. And then as if there's kind of a hole in the top of the head and this beautiful white light is coming down, just imagine it comes down through the top of the head, down through the skull, past your forehead and the back of the head. That's where your third eye is. So now we're just going to ask source light to open and expand that third eye, clearing out any overthinking thoughts, any veils or any blockages that you've put up in regards to your connection to your intuition. Just releasing, clearing, expanding that third eye. And then we'll ask source light to come down, deep down into the throat, opening up your throat chakra, opening, expanding, clearing out any words, any feelings, any emotions that might be trapped in the throat, opening and expanding that throat chakra, allowing for a clearer voice, allowing you to speak your truth, allowing you to have more conscious effort and awareness of the words that are passing through your mouth, past your throat. And then we're going to bring that same white light even further down past the throat, down into the center of the heart, center of the chest, in the heart chakra. Opening and expanding that heart chakra, which is a beautiful green color. Opening and expanding the heart, allowing us to feel more love, allowing unconditional love to pour in. And then asking source light, this beautiful white light, to come down a little below the heart to just above the belly button to your solar plexus. Opening, expanding your solar plexus. That's where your gut instinct comes from. Your solar plexus and your third eye work very closely together with your intuition. So we're going to clear out any negative energies that might be hanging out in that belly. We're going to release all that and bring in more source energy, expanding, opening, clearing that solar plexus, allowing you to have more courage, more strength. And then bringing that source light down to the sacral area, which is just below the belly button. Opening and expanding your sacral, allowing you to connect with your ancestors, your guides, clearing out any stagnant energy or any negativity that you might be holding in that area. And then bring that source light down into the root, which is at the base of your spine. Opening and expanding that root chakra, connecting you to source, connecting to you to your ancestors in a deep way, allowing you to have strength and connection to the earth. And then let's just bring that source light down the legs, all the way out the feet, down into the center of the earth, just letting any energy that's not for your highest and greatest good, maybe energies that aren't even yours, just allowing those to pool out down the body into the earth, allowing it to go down, to be re-cleansed by Mother Gaia. And then let's just go ahead and pull up more beautiful yin energy through the bottom of the feet, clear, beautiful white light up through the feet, past the ankles, past the knees, past the hips, into the root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, the heart, throat, third eye, and up to the crown. Just envision yourself being surrounded by this beautiful white light. Take a deep breath in and release that breath. Take another steadying breath and release. And then when you're ready, blink your eyes a couple times and come back to us.
Oh, that was so good. Love that. I love, love, love. Thank you so much, Denice. That was so amazing.
You're welcome. I don't know if you heard, but as soon as I started doing the clearing, my dog came in and she started squeaking her squeaky toy. I'm like, really? Of all the times. I understand you just wanted to bring in, get a little bit of that energy healing too, but I'm like, no.
I just think all fur babies are just so energetic, and they just know when energy work is happening that they've got to like add their little element in there. So we receive the energy from the beautiful fur baby. We receive it. So
I know we have to go, but something that just really popped in. Do you remember when we were doing our tea times and my cat Merlin would always decide it was time to eat, and he was the cat that had to put his paw in the dish and dig the food out, and so it would be tink 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 tink, and then you hear munch 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 munch, and then tink 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 tink, munch 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 munch, and it was always when it was like quiet and time to meditate. Like, it wasn't when we were reading cards and doing all the things. No, it's when I needed everything in the house to go quiet and we were going to get into a meditation. There's Merlin.
Perfect timing. Literally
always,
perfect timing. Oh my gosh. I so loved it though. I loved when your cats would be everywhere and they would come and join us. And it was just so fun to just bring it all in. So I love it. I love animals, period. So I'm always excited when they decide they want to pop up into, a podcast show, anything. I'm just like, yes, let's join. And literally
join in.
Yeah, like the holiday episode that I did, my friend, she actually that's what she does. She takes care of like fur babies. And she's like, well,
nice.
I don't know because they're going to come in. I'm like, let them come in. Let them come in. Absolutely.
Yeah,
we're including them in here. Yeah, exactly.
So healing. Animals are so healing.
100%. Yeah. So I'm like, bring them in. We're taking that energy. So, but anyways, I just want to thank you again so much, Denice. This was so amazing. And it was so beautiful, selfishly, because it gave me an opportunity to catch up with you because it's been a while. And just not only to do that, but, like I said before, like this is, you were just someone very important during some times that I could really use that support, and I wasn't necessarily as connected to my guidance. And so,
Yeah.
popping in, and you created this beautiful space and community for us to come in. And I know that all of us, including you, received from that opportunity.
Oh,
So it's my
100%.
way of like just saying thank you for what you've like, contributed to me, and what the work that you do, and to
You're
be able to
welcome.
share you with like others, because you do such amazing work. And obviously, everyone that's listening, all of Denice's information will be in the bio section, and she does a lot of different things, and you can reach out to her to obviously a lot of these things. The beauty of it, other than the massage therapy or some of the other things, you don't have to do things in person. She can do them online, which is beautiful. So many, many different ways to connect with her.
Yes. All
And
energy link done distant.
yes, exactly. So I just thank you again. It's been so beautiful. And I hope that the audience that is tuned in, whether it's, when it gets released or in the future, that there's something beautiful for you to receive, something that you resonated with, that you could, incorporate into your life. And just want everyone to feel like they're always supported and loved, and to just trust and believe in yourself.
Absolutely. And if anybody has any questions, or if something that we talked about resonated, I'm an open book. I have no shame and no secrets. And if there's something that you're struggling with, or something you just want to talk about, I mean, healing comes in many, many different forms. If you're just looking for someone maybe to talk to that might understand what you're going through, send me a message, look me up on Facebook. And yeah, I'm always open to chat, and help in any way that I can.
I love it. Thank you so much for offering that, Denice. So with that, we wrap up this
Of
episode, and
course.
thank you so much. And I look forward to catching everyone on the next episode.